Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the 5 things to know about PowerPoint templates before you invest in a new one webinar, brought to you by Verdana Bold. Thank you so much for joining us today. So let me start by introducing your hosts. I am Kyle Karts. I'm the Creative Director of Storytelling here at Verdana Bold. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a little echo. Let me fix that. Sorry about that. And today I am joined by Dave Matfield, who is our Creative Director of Presentation Design.
Hey everybody, I'm happy to be here today. This topic is near and dear to my heart, so I'm excited to share our insights.
Cool. So before we get into the templates, we want to just tell you a little bit about who we are. So Dave and I are joining you from Verdana Bold, which is a presentation design, storytelling, and training agency. So VB is based in Chicago, and we are proud to be a woman-owned company that's built around a highly experienced team of presentation designers and communications experts. But really, we see ourselves as more than just presentation designers. We're really more like partners to some of the biggest brands around. And that's because we work hand in hand with folks from a really broad range of industries and different job types to build and refine presentations, help shape their stories, and ultimately to drive real business results. And over the years, we have worked on more than 75,000 slides. And this includes keynote addresses, investor day decks, product launches, startup pitches, really any type of presentation that you can think of. And today's webinar is going to give you just a little preview of what that looks like. But if you want to see more of our work or learn about who we are and what we do, this year we launched a brand new website, and we would love for you to pop over and take a quick look at the new verdanabold.com. So with that, let's get to the templates. So today we are talking templates, what they are, what they can do for you, how to use them the right way, and really just what you need to know before your team or your brand starts working on creating a new one. So we work with all types of brands to create and update their templates. So we see a lot of the challenges that people run into when they're trying to use one. So I think the place to start is just by asking what even is a PowerPoint template, right? It's not quite a blank canvas and it's not quite a pre-designed slide library. It's kind of somewhere in between. So a good template is just going to lock in some of those foundational elements for your presentation. Your brand colors, your logos, your fonts, that stuff that really is baked in and needs to always stay the same. But it also allows presenters to choose from some shell slides that can be designed, as well as some pre-designed slides that are ready for them to just drop their content in and go. And while templates as a tool are actually pretty straightforward, setting one up is not always so easy. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Dave, who's going to take you through some of the common issues that people face when they're building out a template.
Thanks, Kyle. So, right around the time we were putting this together, I came across a comment on Reddit that perfectly summarizes the experience that so many of us have had. A user posted this question to a PowerPoint subreddit, and they asked, "How do I make a presentation so bad that it's actually funny?" The response is pure gold. Just use my company's template. Works every time. The reactions to this comment were a good mix of hearty laughter and confusion, and I could tell in that moment easily, like who works with PowerPoint templates a lot and who doesn't.
For sure.
And so you might be wondering, how can a template actually make things worse? Well, a bad template is one that has attributes incorrectly defined. What's worse than designing from scratch is having to revert formatting slide by slide. It's an embarrassing feeling presenting a deck that has elements jumping around because you didn't have time to fight with the template. A good template, on the other hand, functions well in addition to looking sharp. Yeah, it needs some attractive layouts to flow your ideas into, but when a template is designed well, those functional components work in chorus, almost humming along in the background, just speeding up creation time. In a few minutes, I'm going to walk you through how to demonstrate some of this, but first I want to talk about what PowerPoint templates do well that informs template design.
So templates can actually do a lot for your team if they are built properly. And as we've just seen, if they're not, they can become a bit of a hindrance. But like any tool, they're really better for some tasks than others. So let's take a closer look at the actual ways that templates can support your team's presentations.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Kyle. PowerPoint templates excel at defining master styles that will inform the look and feel, and just as importantly, the behavior behind your presentation. These master styles are literally the foundation that you're going to build your layouts on. And so master styles ensure that you have consistent looking type across your layouts. You can program fonts, colors, text size, location. You can also define how it behaves. If there's too much text, do you want the placeholder to resize or do you want the text to shrink down? Should the text wrap up or down? There are many different attributes and behaviors. There are many different attributes and behaviors that often people don't even know to consider. Can the user swap images or should they be locked for brand consistency? Should the logo always float on top? Should the user be allowed to delete the logo or modify its color? Honestly, there's no best way. It's just custom solutions based on what your brand needs. So while templates can do a lot, they struggle when it comes to visualizing data. Things like tables and charts, custom infographics, and uncommon layouts without a lot of replay value, they don't templatize well. Brands often try and compensate for this by overloading the template with layout options. But when that happens, layouts become weighed down, trading too much flexibility in the name of quantity. I think what users actually need is a functional canvas to solve real-world content problems.
Mhm.
Slides need the right balance of scaffolding and breathing room. Just remember, the goal is not uniformity at all costs. It's consistent brand decisions that can scale across varied types of content. In other words, a good template reduces the amount of manual formatting, and it helps users create a variety of new slides quickly and easily. And, just as importantly, it helps presentations stay consistent and on brand.
Thanks, Dave. That was a really helpful explanation of some of the kind of core workings of a template. And I think some of those visuals that you showed really summed up the subtle ways that a template can really impact and improve your presentations. So one of the things that we mentioned in the previous section as well as upfront is that good templates are this mix of these shell slides that you can create based on your specific needs, and then some pre-designed ones that are a little more built out to start with. And you really do need to have that mix because too much of one or the other kind of turns the template into something else entirely. So Dave's going to now walk us through how that would actually play out in a real presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. If what we just talked about was sort of the basics of, what is a template, this is a little bit more philosophical, honestly, but
Mhm.
you're going to see how that reflects in our process and what we would recommend for you guys. So to build on what we were just talking about, templates are that compromise between form and function. It is our philosophy. We call it the template mindset. And it's a different way of thinking, even for PowerPoint veterans like Bob from sales here. As we started to explain, when brands are building a new template, they often want to load it up with every slide type they could possibly imagine. We get it. I mean, clients, they rightly see templates as an investment in their brand. But expecting layouts to account for all these different types of content, it actually weakens a template's flexibility. The template mindset strikes this balance, the balance between flexibility of a canvas and the variety of layouts you'd find in a slide library. So if you kind of think of it plotted on a spectrum here, on the left, a blank document is basically all flexibility and no variety. At this point, it ceases to be a template. If you go to the other end, a template that prioritizes variety over flexibility, it's not really a template either. It's just a presentation. We often joke that templates aren't graphic designers, but what we really mean is that templates shouldn't attempt to replace graphic designers. The option on the right is doing just that by overloading it with options that restrict its modularity. For everyday users, the template should be somewhere in the middle. I think there's a sweet spot. Let's take a closer look at some of that. So here's the slide master. Some of you might have honestly never seen this before. You might never have been to this part of PowerPoint town, but it doesn't look like much, especially at first. But it's where templates are born. This is where you can define the template's most essential attributes like margins and grids. I mean, seems simple, but we saw in that previous example, you don't want things hopping all around. It's simple, but often unconsidered.
And even a tiny little shift is going to be noticeable,
Yeah.
especially spread across multiple slides and multiple presentations.
One little pixel and you'll
Yes,
notice. Somebody will notice.
for sure.
Um, and other essential things like brand colors. The master is where you define your like the entire template's brand color palette. This allows them to be available at your user's fingertips without having to worry about anybody going off script.
Yeah, there's a real snowball effect possibility here, right? You just
Mhm.
a couple shades off of that brand tone, and then everything kind of starts to fall apart.
Yeah, you're either going to get users who are like they eyeball it or they just go completely rogue.
Yeah.
Um, this is sort of a minute of foreshadowing, but brand fonts. We're going to talk a little bit about these later, but brand fonts can be defined and adjusted, and they provide design guardrails around your type. They're absolutely critical, as you're about to see. So having some of these things locked down ahead of time, it's just going to set your users up for winning.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've programmed these very essential pieces into the master, but there's really still nothing much to look at. So the next step is to build some of those custom grab and go layouts we created from the template master. And so by default, the attributes of the master are going to apply here, but the look below in the things that you see to come can be completely customized. They're built using content placeholders to accommodate a variety of different types of content. And again, this is what we mean by that template mindset. Rather than build everything ahead of time, layouts should provide scaffolding for rapid creation. So these types of grab and go slides can vary brand to brand, but almost always we see things like titles and divider slides and simple content slides, slides for impactful statements and quotes, photo containers, photo collage slides, and then a placeholder for tables and charts. So when you put it all together, a well-defined master with smart layout choices, you get a template. And if you do it right, it'll empower the users to consistently duplicate success rather than constantly trying to improvise. And speaking of success, our next tip might be the most critical.
Yes, I think that if there's one thing that's a truly universal challenge with PowerPoint, it might just be fonts. Whether that's choosing the right one that's appropriate for your brand and your audience and your presentation, or just making sure that the fonts you're using actually show up in the presentation, which seems like it would be straightforward, but somehow is not. Fonts can really make or break a presentation and by extension your template. So Dave's going to walk through some of these issues that come up with fonts, which are pretty specific to this aspect of PowerPoint. Um, Talk a little bit about how you can use those custom brand fonts that are so important to certain templates, and then just some other useful tips.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. I'm approaching this from a place of emotion, certainly. The designer in me or the presenter in me, let's say, it's a scary feeling as you're going to see because things fonts can substitute, they can do weird things, but it can also break. I put in an example at the end that it kind of highlights the very functional ramifications of like not, of messing around with fonts, I should say. And so we're going to talk about three different categories that we can sort of choose to like think about fonts that could be helpful for choosing. This first category are system fonts. And just like they sound, they're called system fonts because they're basically installed on everybody's system. And this is great for compatibility because, you're almost guaranteed that everybody's going to have this font installed. So if you think of the author at the top, they have Arial and they send it out, and everybody below the audience, they all have Arial. So everything renders perfectly. The only downfall of system fonts is that because they're common, they can sometimes be seen as basic, or if a brand has a very custom font, a system font might feel lackluster in comparison. So we can talk about, ways that people get around that. That brings us to our second category. Um, I'm just going to call these non-system fonts. And so here we see Helvetica. Visually, it's actually like very similar to Arial, but it behaves differently because not everybody has Helvetica installed on their computers. When the author sends out the file, it kind of depends on the user and their PowerPoint and I don't know, what's ever in the ether that day. to decide like how PowerPoint's going to substitute the font. And so the user on the left and the bottom, they have Helvetica, so everything's fine. But the center and right users don't, and so PowerPoint can sometimes make wild substitutions that are out of your control. So that's obviously not very ideal. And it leads us to our third possibility, which is embedding fonts. This is something that's recently been aligned in the two versions in recent years, and so we are sort of encouraging the adoption of embedding more with certain caveats. If a brand wants to proceed with custom fonts, they can embed them, and that means exactly what it sounds. The font information gets embedded with the presentation so that anybody can view it. But I mentioned that big caveat. Not all fonts embed well. Not all fonts embed at all, and you have to test this rigorously ahead of time just to avoid problems. Because if you don't, your presentation can actually look like this. It's one thing to present using the wrong font, but this is obviously unusable. And so that's why testing is critical. If it embeds and it tests, if it passed the embed test, as we call it, then you have a reasonable expectation that it's going to show up on the other person's end, but you just want to make sure of that first.
I think you can see an indication of how challenging this particular issue is for people
Yeah.
because it's one of the most viewed blog posts that we have on our site is how to embed fonts. It's this thing that makes a lot of sense to people, but it seems to always cause a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it kind of drifts into IT a little bit, right? Like
Hmm.
you can be a very skilled artist or creator, but still have no idea like why your computer's breaking. And so
Yeah.
it's just one of those things you have to watch out for. And so to recap the font thing, when compatibility is a top concern, we enthusiastically recommend system fonts. They're a super safe bet. However, sometimes brand fidelity is going to be your main concern. And so in those instances, we encourage organizations to embed their fonts as long as they've tested them. And then lastly, just remember untested fonts, you're really playing with fire. And so you need to proceed at your own risk.
Okay, so we went through a lot of stuff about templates pretty quickly. Obviously, there's a lot going on here. And while most of this is probably pretty straightforward, it can also still be hard to visualize how this stuff really works and how a template really comes together. So let's kind of see how these things actually work when you're working with a real file.
Yeah, cool. Can I take over for a minute?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, 1 second here. Okay, Kyle, can you see my screen?
I don't know, actually. Yes.
It might be taking a minute. Okay, yes. Okay. So what I have here is an example template. It's very similar to something that we would build for a client. We just built it for ourselves so we could kind of show how.
Dave, sorry, I'm not seeing your screen.
Oh, you're not. Hold on a second.
Oh, no, there it is. Sorry. Apologies. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, so we have this example template here that we like to run through. I think it's helpful sometimes just to kind of see it in motion for a minute. And so rather than kind of walk you through all the bells and whistles we kind of talked about, I thought it might be nice just to watch me quickly build a 5 slide deck. You can see how quickly it can come together when you have, a well-designed template and you have your assets organized well. And so if we look here, you can see these are some of those grab and go layouts we talked about. I'm actually just going to clear all that out because it's not like it actually deletes the template data. It just gets rid of the ones that we already typed stuff into. And so here I have just a blank slide to start. And I come over to our fake outline for our fake project here. And I'm going to start flowing stuff in. So this is a title slide. And so these text boxes work either way. You can either copy and paste or you can type directly into them. Okay, slide 2, who's in the room? Looks like a headshot slide. And again, I know this template a little bit better than you guys watching, but with a little bit of practice, you can find the things you need pretty quickly. And so if I go in, I can just copy and paste these things right into the boxes.
It's nice to be able to just paste it instead of having to paste and match style or edit it live because that
Yeah,
adds a lot of extra clicks
right.
and work to the process.
Exactly. It's already snapping into place. You can go in when things have more than one level. defined, you can go in and hit tab and it'll drop it down. I usually like to point that out because it's not super intuitive with how PowerPoint usually
Hmm.
works.
Yeah, I don't think you would think to try that out if you didn't know that it was an option.
No, I don't think so. So in our project folder here, we have, I gotta move it so I can see it. Oh, well, our fake project manager really organized things well. It's going to help things for us. But a properly defined template will flow things in order. So that's nice too. Forgot the title here. Okay. Slide 3 looks like a divider slide. You come up to there, you can choose your layouts, choose from one of our dividers, who we are. I'm just going to type that in. Oh, that. Okay, on to slide 4. Big statement slide. Okay. Come to our layouts. I know we have an impactful statement slide in here, even if it takes me a minute to find it. Where'd it go? Let's use this one. Okay.
This does highlight one of the challenges of over designing your template is when you have
Yes.
100 options to choose from, where do you start?
Yes, Kyle, good catch. That's exactly it. Like something that becomes too robust, it just becomes also unusable. So, and then we're going to wrap this up. This slide says photo collage. Okay. Place this title here. Great. Back to our project folder. Drop in our photos, simple drag and drop. Great. And so if we wanted to, we can also just if we wanted to put a point on it, we can wrap it up with one more slide that's sort of a closing slide here. And there we go. Oops, not that slide. So, obviously I've used this template before, but I think it helps just to see how quickly you can kind of ideate on ideas as long as, you're working with a template that's been properly defined.
Yeah, and I think it also shows sort of hand in hand with that how much easier the process gets when you've got that outline and you've kind of worked through some of your content before you start. Slightly
Yeah.
separate matter, but that does really make a difference.
Shout out to all the project managers out there too. We need to do a part 2 to this, I think. All right, Kyle, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Well, that was really impressive. It is really cool to see how quickly you can really put something that looks really sharp and polished together, without really having to get your hands dirty fiddling with the content or with all the
Yeah.
details of the slide. It all just works.
Yeah.
So now that you've seen how a well-made template can work when it's built the way it should be, I hope that you're starting to feel excited about how templates might streamline things for your own team. But there's one more thing that you need to do if you really want to make sure that you're going to get the most from your template and that it's really going to be useful for everybody who tries to get in there. And that's just to train people how to use it.
Yeah, it's so true, Kyle. Like a template can be a great guardrail, but even the best templates fail without operational discipline from the organization.
Yeah, you can't just chuck it over and think everybody's going to figure it out.
No, you can't. And so, to that, our advice, set your team up for success. It may sound obvious, but you have to show your employees how to use the new template.
Yeah.
Even a well-designed template shouldn't be handed off with the assumption that teammates are going to know how to use it. Then show them what success looks like. Providing design content using the new design is a great way to give employees this North Star that they can use in creating their own presentations. And lastly, don't forget to continue to educate. The template mindset isn't immediately obvious. So continuing support and education will encourage adoption and raise the quality of everybody's work.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dave. This has been a ton of really good information about templates. At least I think so. And I know that we still even barely scratched the surface of all of the stuff that you can really do with these. They can really kind of go deep if you try. But really all you need to get started is the stuff that we covered today and a little bit of time playing around with templates and learning how to use them.
Yep.
So just to kind of make it easier for you to get started, let's quickly recap the essential things you need to know before your team starts working on a new PowerPoint template.
Yes. Here it is, all together, top 5. Number 1, most templates simply aren't set up correctly. A bad template is worse than no template at all if you spend all your time fighting with it. A lot of what makes a good template good is what happens under the hood, so to speak. Number two, let templates do what they do best. Templates excel at global styling and rapid prototyping. They begin to waffle when they're asked to plan for complex visuals in advance. Number three, balance flexibility with variety. The template mindset is all about that balance. Think of it as a design system balanced with curated layouts that encourage good decisions. Number four, fonts. Fonts can literally make it or break it. Fonts drive brand look and feel, but an untested font can also break a presentation. So our recommendation is to lead with system fonts when compatibility is a top concern, or embed a well-tested font when brand fidelity matters most. And lastly, encourage education to aid in that template adoption. It's important to educate your organization on how to use that new template. Even the best templates fail without support and direction from the organization.
So true. All right. So templates are great tools and they can account for just about anything you need to do in PowerPoint. But sometimes there's just one slide that's always gives you trouble. And if you've got one tough slide that you're feeling stuck on, maybe something that you've tried to update the design or streamline the content on, and you just kind of can't figure it out, well, we want to help. We do some slide redesign webinars, and we would love to take a crack at your toughest, most challenging slides and see how we might redesign them to make them a little clearer and a little more engaging for an audience. No tricks, no obligations, just some real presentation thinking that we are going to apply to your most challenging slides. So again, slides@verdanable.com. Send us anything. Try to stump Dave, and we would love to feature those on our next webinar.
Yeah, hit us with your best shot.
For sure. So that's it today. But thank you so much to everyone who attended for joining us. We really appreciate it. Remember, send us those slides if you'd like to be featured in an upcoming webinar. And if you want to talk about presentations, well, we want to talk to. Scan the QR code on the slide here, or you can go to our website to get in touch. And we'll set up some time for a free slide assessment where we can take a look at your slides, give you some ideas on how they might be refined, or just have a conversation about what's possible with your presentation. And then finally, remember, be sure to check out thenewverdanable.com for more on all things presentations. All right, from everybody at VB, thank you very much. That's all for today.